Hello everyone, welcome back if you've come from watching my first two videos, and welcome in general if you haven't seen any yet. But this is my third video regarding the BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin by Spitfire Audio, plugin or virtual instrument or software instrument, whichever you'd like to call it. In this video I'm particularly looking at the string leaders again. I had a little look at that in the first video, but I was I wanted to do something, write a piece, more of a medley of ideas using various articulations from the string leaders instances. I just wanted to try and see if I can get it making it sound like a quintet as much as I could. For that, I've actually used just the close mics just to get that real close sound, but then use the reverb on the end of it. I might do something at the end of this video where I use different mic positions. I started doing it using the Mix 1. It felt just a bit too much. It didn't feel very, I didn't have the intimacy of a quartet or quintet. So let's play through the tune and then we can talk about the various bits going on afterwards. Okay, as you can see, there's various bits of articulations going on throughout that. And I think it's a real test to hear how these instruments work on their close mic setting. You kind of, it's hard to gloss over any oddities that go on. The shorts obviously just come up, a lot better against the longs. I think, particularly the pizzicato. Obviously, the close micing gives it a bit more punch anyway. But I think the pits on their own. Take the reverb off. I noticed obviously I put a reverb on the end. This is the East-West rival company. East-West Spaces 2, which is it's good actually. I've used it on a few different things. I wasn't a big fan of the first one, even though I think that my algorithms are the same. Maybe it's just the visuals make it sound better, something like that. But let me take that off, and you can hear what the pit sounds like on the just with the close mic sound on its own. There's a little bit of room in there still, which is good. It's not quite like the Vienna silent stage. I can't remember what they call their room where they record things, but the Vienna stuff is all like dead basically. It sounds great, but you have to work hard to kind of make it sound in the space. Whereas I think having a little bit of a tail on things, it does help things move around a little bit, even if it is still going for that intimate vibe. Let's go back up to these legatos at the beginning. Now, I think altogether they sound all right. There's obviously this section, I think it starts off quite well. There's a bit where we get to this section, then it starts sounding quite, not fake, but it's less realistic. And I think that's just something to do with, I've had the same problem when I've layered up real strings on top of each other, but in multi-tracking, there's something about the frequencies phasing out with each other. I mean, on their own, they don't sound. There's something. On their own, it's not too bad, but yeah, as you see, it's not perfect. And actually, there's a few transitions between notes. I never got this one. I was pulling around various, velocity dynamics, should I say, over here to kind of see if it sounded different. But that weird scoopy thing, I haven't been able to get rid of that yet. It doesn't really matter. I don't know why that would be, but in the mix, can't really tell too much. I was actually very impressed because most of the time the legato patches and most things I've used don't have a particularly smooth transition if you're doing repeated stuff. I mean, guaranteed it's not perfect or nor realistic necessarily, but it does a reasonably good job of doing that comparatively to some of the other samples I've heard. Let's move over to the flautandos. I cheated on the flautandos because I just like the sound of it. So this isn't necessarily a quintet. I've actually just used 4-note voicing and copied them onto each the violin 1, 2, and the viola, just because it sounded nice. And I thought, well, you can now in this demonstration I can play to you what it would sound like if you were just layering 4 of the solo of the violin 1 leader. With the cheeky addition of the 5th note at the end. I'm going to actually mess around with this as I go now, because with the close miking, I've had to do a little bit more EQing. You can obviously, if you're just playing one note on its own, so let me just mute these bits here. You can hear the air coming off the bow, which sounds lovely on one. But once you start layering up a few layers of that same sound, that kind of comes a lot louder. And the build up in the mids as well is a bit much. That's a bit better. Let me copy across those settings to violin 2. We'll hear what that sounds like. Now, I find this with chamber strings as well. Sometimes I prefer the sound of the violin 2, in this case the leader, but the sections in chamber strings. I find myself using violin 2 sometimes over violin 1 for my lead line. It just has a bit of a sweeter sound, I find. It's a little bit less intense and sometimes sits better, so it's always worth experimenting. Let's listen to the violas on that. I might give them a slightly different EQ as I go. I'm just going to quickly guess that might be a good starting point. That was a lot quieter than we expected. I wonder if I've used the wrong thing. No, the flautandos. I mean, that's a lovely fragile sound as it is. I mean, that's my fault for not checking that before and just going copy and paste. That sounds good, and leaving as it was. But yeah, altogether. yeah, it sounds quite rich. There's one high harmonic, which even though there's no point to the video, I just need to pull it out somewhere over here in there. I feel better for doing that. Okay, next up, oh yes, the harmonics. I think the harmonics sound really lovely on this, actually. There's definitely there's more character to harmonics on a solo instrument, I feel. So I've just got the violin one and the cello. And the cello, please. Just make sure that's starting at the right time. Right, that's lovely. I mean, that you can really hear the air and air off the bow there coming through, which in this instance, I think with everything in, kind of just adds a little bit of atmospheric stuff. Okay, next I'm going to look at the trills. I only used one set of trill things on this. When I first put it in, I thought this is actually a little bit disappointing. It sounds like the trill isn't particularly strong, and there's something about pressing harder, you get a slightly different trill. But I think on the leaders that doesn't necessarily happen. So I'm going to press pretty hard. Now pressing really soft. If anything, that just sounds like there's a little bit more of note before it goes into the trill if I play soft, but the difference is not that wide. And yeah, I'll just solo it. Yeah, it's not at all that regular. Sounds slightly messy, but actually I kind of got used to that, and it sounds a lot more human than maybe just a really regulated trill. But I imagine, some people would want that really regulated trill. I probably would if I was doing something different. In this, I kind of like... I think there's something quite nice and human about it there. Moving along up to another articulation, let's look at the tremolo part. The trems sound great. Trems often sound great on sample libraries, I find anyway, but they don't disappoint here either. And also in that section, you heard a brief bit of it earlier on. I think the winner of the legatos of the leaders is definitely the cello. I mean, apart from that one note where it kind of sounded a bit more obvious to me around about this. There's something about the some high frequencies that kind of pop in over on that note differently to the notes before. But I think with all of this, the whole of this piece, if I could sit here tweaking this for a longer time and get it sounding more realistic. I guess part of the point of me doing these videos is to show you how these things can be done quickly and how much work you have to put into making things sound good, or not how much work you don't have to put in. Some things sound great straight away. I mean, all the shorts, pizzicato and staccato stuff sounds excellent. Sorry, spiccato. I haven't used any staccato samples. They're all the spiccato samples for those shorts. But yes, they sound great off the bat. The legato you do have to play around with to get it sounding good. The cello does sound probably the best of the bunch, and certainly the violin one, it is pretty good. But once you're up the top, you have to be very careful about how you connect the notes and making sure that if you want to start softly at the beginning, as you'll see on most of these MIDI bits where the first note of a phrase comes in, I've had to pull that down to a velocity of 1 to make sure that comes in soft, because otherwise the attack is a little bit harsh, even if I just bring that up to say 4, 6, yeah, 9. So anything below 10, I think it might be. 10 is a little bit of a jumpy attack. So yeah, anyway, that's enough of me rambling. I did really enjoy playing with these the string leaders on this. I got to say, it was after the first go I had on the first video, I wasn't sure if it was something I'd actually use again, but I wanted to explore it more, and I actually think it's very usable. It's never going to sound as good as the real thing. I suggest if you've not recorded any live string players, go out and do it. Even if you're miking in a room that's not useful, it's worth just experimenting and really getting real sound onto your tracks if you can. But in a writing situation, if you're presenting something, or if the budget isn't there, I think this could pass. It sounds pretty good. Okay, thanks very much for now. I'll speak to you soon.